Good morning, everyone. It is really early because it's daylight savings time, and it's the first day, which means all day long I'm going to go, it's 10 o'clock, but it's really 9 o'clock. And I'm going to do this for the next 2 months because that's the kind of special bunny I am. Hopefully, you just woke up and you're like, yeah, springing forward, doing your thing.
Yeah.
Um, it's the last day of the bundle. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you have literally been like hibernating in a cave. It's the 2024 Vegan Health Bundle tonight at 11:59 Pacific Standard Time. It will no longer be available ever again. There's a couple of things like a contributor cookbook that you can't get any other way. It's $8,000 worth of digital products for $49. And I personally have over $200 worth of products. So spend $49, get $200 worth of my stuff and a whole bunch of other things, like so many. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit as we go. We have Jane Thurnell-Read here today, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. She is from the UK, so she is not feathered nor bothered by this whole daylight savings time. Welcome.
Thank you. I am actually bothered by it because it took me a while to make sure I would appear at the right time. Because normally you're 5 hours difference, but right now you're only 4 hours difference. So it has bothered me. But anyway, I turned up.
Actually, I
turned up at the right
appreciate that
time.
a little bit because, like, I was feeling very bothered when my alarm went off this morning.
Anyway, so I'm in my 70s. I've been vegan since 2015, whole food plant-based vegan since 2015. Before that, I was vegetarian for over 40 years.
What year did you go vegetarian?
Well, I first went vegetarian when I was 12 because I decided I didn't want to eat dead animals. So we're talking about 47, 57, about 1959, 1960, something like that. And I didn't know the word vegetarian even. I didn't know any vegetarians. I didn't even know there was a word for what I was doing, which was I decided it was wrong to kill animals and I wasn't, in order to eat them, and I wasn't going to do it. My mother was horrified. She thought I was a really picky eater. Turning into a picky eater. So she refused to give me anything instead of the meat. So surprise, surprise, after about 6 months I got ill. The doctor came to see me and my mother said, well, of course she's not eating meat. And the doctor threw up his hands in horror and said, oh my God, no wonder she's ill. So they convinced me I needed to start eating meat again. Of course, if I'd been given the right food instead of the meat, I would be okay. But I didn't know that then. And then I eventually became vegetarian in my 20s, mainly for the animals. I mean, back then, people believed a vegetarian diet was unhealthy.
Yes, I became vegetarian in 1983, which was
Right.
much later than you, but it was still very weird and underground. I was 18 years old when I became vegetarian, and
Yeah.
it was around 2010 that I became vegan. So I can't imagine you doing it a couple of decades earlier, right?
Yeah. People thought I was very, very, very peculiar. And and then in 2015 I became vegan, and like so many other people, the thing I say about that is I wish I'd done it so much earlier. And I don't know about you, but you hear that over and over again, don't you, by people who become whole food plant-based vegans. I wish I'd done it earlier. I feel so much better for it.
Absolutely. And I hear it from both sides too. Even vegan people or vegetarian people or people who are maybe vegan people versus whole food plant-based people is what I'm really thinking. So
Yeah.
like if you're coming at it from an animal welfare or kindness, or you're coming at it health, everybody wishes they got there a little sooner. And I don't know about you, I see a lot of those cross over. And that's a real beautiful thing to see too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, it was always about the animals, but subsequently it's become about the health. And now the very important issues around the environment. It's
Yes.
one of the most significant things we can do for the health of the planet is to stop eating animals.
It does so many things, right? And it's really kind of a basically easy thing to do. Cheryl came came to it a little bit later. She went vegan in 2019. And you don't know, but Cheryl and I are married. We've been married a long time. And so one of the things people used to say a lot was, oh, you finally got to her. Oh, you finally won her over. And I was like, don't take her power away, right? Because it wasn't
Yeah, yeah.
me. She talked to another friend of ours, or someone who became a friend of ours after we met him, Josh Lajani, and it just clicked for her. So everybody has that click moment. And what was,
Yeah.
you said the first time you've kind of just felt like it was wrong to eat animals. Did you have another click when you changed your eating patterns again?
Well, actually, I did. One that I haven't actually mentioned. So between being 12 years old and then becoming a vegetarian about when I was about 26, I had another go at being vegetarian because I was in Botswana in Africa, and I was staying with this family, and the husband ran a butcher's shop. And I was walking along the road, and he saw me, and he called me, and he took me. He said, "Come, come, come!" And I said, "What for?" And he said, "Oh, just come." And there was crowds of people, and I'm not going to be really graphic here because it's upsetting for people. Um, but there was a young fella who was going to kill a cow for the first time, and he was going to use a gun to do it. And surprise, surprise, he botched it, and it was absolutely dreadful. And I'm not going to I'm not going to go into any more detail than
Yeah,
that.
that would be
I,
great.
and I was so revolted by it. Actually, for a week, I didn't eat at all. I couldn't put anything in my mouth because I was so revolted by it. And then after that, I started eating because I realized, you've got to eat to live. But I didn't eat meat. But I didn't do very well. And I think the reason I didn't do very well is I made the change very fast. And I think a lot of people can do that. There's people who go from meat eating one day, which they've been doing all their life, to the next day being vegan, and they're absolutely fine. But for me, again, it didn't work out. This time I was doing better because I was able to cook for myself, so I was putting stuff instead of the meat. But I didn't really feel well, so very reluctantly I went back to eating meat again. And then in my 20s, I met a vegetarian couple, and I said to them, I'd love to be vegetarian, but twice I've tried and it hasn't worked. The first time, okay, it was because my mum didn't give me anything instead. And the second time, it was, I just didn't work. And they said to me, well, what we suggest you do is instead of going from one day to the next, start by removing red meat and do that for about 6 weeks, and then remove white meat and so on. And so I did that, and that worked wonderfully for me. So, I mean, a lot of people, as I say, can do it from one moment to the next, but there's people who can't. And I was obviously not one of those. Yeah.
I think it's really important too that we leave space for people to be able to do it the way that it works best for them. Because
Yeah.
however it worked for us, like for me, I saw a side of beef on a hook in the grocery store. And that's the day I decided I was never eating meat again. And I was 18 and I didn't cook and I didn't know anything. So like, I got sick, but I was also like a mac and cheese, grilled cheese vegan, and I had ramen. I thought I was safe with the veggie ramen, right? You learn so much so fast. And then I was like, finally read the ingredients. I was reading some book and I was like, what is chicken powder, right? Like you think of so many hidden things that you don't know about. And for me, I did get sick and then I got better. But some people, like Cheryl, actually like Beyond Meat, which obviously is not a healthy product or like something we all aspire to eat. But I think sometimes transitional foods can really help people get into it. So Beyond Burgers were at her favorite drive-through. So it just happened to be so that way she could get that instead of the normal burger. Kind of like what you're talking about as well, that you're kind of giving your body, your mind, your taste some time to settle on that. So I think,
Well, and,
Yeah.
and I was getting that familiar texture.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was feeling like, okay, yeah, this is good. And now I don't even like eat Beyond Burgers or anything like that because I lost the taste for it very quickly.
and
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that often happens. I find, and I don't know about in the UK, but certainly over here, there can be really big fights about Beyond Meat within the vegan and the whole food plant-based community. And I always say, you have to let people have the things. Everything isn't for me, and that's okay. But I think that a lot of these things have the place. And the same thing you're saying is it's okay to not just go, okay, because I decided one day, now you must decide in one
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's right. And, for a lot of people, I know quite a lot of people. I mean, we have the term flexitarian. Do you have that term?
Yes, we do.
So that's quite well known. A lot of people would describe themselves as flexitarian. So they eat plant-based maybe 2, 3 days a week, and then they'll eat meat and fish the other days.
That's good. And it's good to have again sometimes some names for things so that people don't feel like I always say here and the word vegan is very charged here, and I always say there's really not a lot of mean vegans, but they make a schedule. So someone can say something crappy like 24 hours a day.
Yes.
And like if you hold out two apples, do you want the regular apple or the vegan apple to the normal population? No one's going to take the vegan apple, right? So having some of these other terms like flexitarian, plant-based, whole food plant-based, I think makes people feel a little more comfortable. Do you find
Yeah,
that in
same
the
in
UK as well?
absolutely the same in the UK. In fact, a lot of restaurants have removed the word vegan against meals. Um, and they've said, what they say is, well, if you're a vegan, you'll ask which of these is vegan. But if you put vegan, then a lot of meat eaters won't eat it because it's vegan.
Yes, absolutely.
So
And
if they take it away, then they will eat it because it no longer says it's vegan. That dreaded word.
Well, here, there's a company called Cinnaholic, and all their
they make cinnamon rolls,
cinnamon rolls
and have
Oh, right,
this
yeah.
big thing,
cookie dough and things like that. And everything there is vegan.
but they don't say,
They don't say it anywhere.
is
They don't
anywhere.
have it anywhere listed.
and it's a national chain now.
Yeah.
Nobody knows
Right.
except the people who are in the know, which is crazy.
Yes, yes. Maybe we should keep this quiet because it could put the regular people off visiting it.
I think we're safe in this where we are now for sure. And so you were going to talk a little bit today about willpower. So I'm interested in what you're going to have to say about this.
Okay, well, when people are talking about losing weight, eating healthily, all that stuff, people talk about having SMART goals and having willpower. This is how you do it. You get what's your big why, all this sort of stuff. And that works really well for some people. Some people get on board, work out their big why. I want to be look wonderful at my son's wedding. I want to fit into a dress that I used to be able to fit into. I want to see if I can get better numbers for my type 2 diabetes, whatever it is. And that works really well for some people. But for a lot of people, willpower really doesn't work. And then what they end up doing is just feeling ashamed and angry and annoyed with themselves. Like, if I had more willpower, I wouldn't eat this, and so on. And the idea being like, you've got some ice cream in your freezer, and hopefully vegan ice cream, but you've got some ice cream in your freezer, and you've had a rough day, and you just eat the whole lot. But you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to go, oh no, this wouldn't fit with my goals. I will show willpower. I will not do this. But it's unrealistic for so many people. So my contribution is to the bundle is an ebook, and I can't remember the exact title, but it's something like "You Don't Need Willpower to Eat Healthily," something like that. And so I actually see we eat a lot when we're not hungry. A lot of people eat a lot of the time and they're not actually hungry. And I see that as a form of self-care. Now, most people see it as not a form of self-care. They see it as a form of self-abuse, eating when you're not hungry. But for me, I think it's, people are trying to solve a problem. I'm upset, so I'll eat cookies. I'm bored, so I'll have some salted nuts. I've just cleaned the kitchen from top to bottom and it looks wonderful, so I deserve a reward. What will I have? And so when people eat when they're not hungry, they're doing it to solve a problem. The problem being boredom, the problem being tiredness, the problem being I need to reward myself right now. The problem being anxiety, the problem being anger, etc., etc. All these different ways. And we use food to reward us. And even though in our hearts, and if we think about it objectively, we know that food is not the solution to boredom, tiredness, so-and-so, anger, and all the rest of them. So in the ebook, I offer alternative strategies, and there's work pages in it so that people can, where I ask you questions and you look for observations and so on. So it's basically finding strategies. When I'm working really hard on my computer, I've been working for ages and I just feel like a break. And the natural thing for me is to come downstairs and open the cupboard and look at what I can eat. And I think this is true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It is. That's what we do. That's what we do. So instead of that, you need to get a strategy or strategies in place for what you do for that break. Now, a simple thing, if you're working from home, instead of going into the kitchen, walk straight through to the front door, open the front door, stand outside, look at the sky, and have that as your break. Listen to the birds, hopefully, if you've got bird song around you. Just get outside for that time, and then come back and don't go into the kitchen, but go straight back to work. Now, I'm not saying this will always work. Sometimes you'll say, oh, to hell with it. I just want a cookie right now, and that's what I'm going to do. But I think if you get the strategies in place, and getting them in place beforehand is really important. Okay, when I want a break from work, I'm going to do either A or B or C. It's quite nice to have 3 options. So you want a break from work, so you look at those 3 options and say, okay, which one do I want to do right now? And that's the one, and then you do that one. So you have the luxury of having a choice of 3 different things, and don't have any of them that involve you going in the kitchen or wherever you keep food, because while you're in there, you're likely to then go and have the food. So it's that sort of thing. In the ebook, I've got some stuff around anger. I mean, that people literally stop themselves speaking by eating. And, if you're angry, sometimes you want to express yourself, but for some reason you don't feel able to. And so what do? You eat and eat and eat and eat and eat to get to literally prevent yourself speaking. And so in the ebook, there's some strategies you can use to reduce your level of anger and so on. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's so helpful. I mean, I want to say that I've looked at everything in the bundle, but I've been only going live. So I've been saving. The bundle is part of my reward system for next week when I get to do this, right?
There's some amazing stuff in it.
It really is, but no, I love what you're talking about, and I relate to it so much, and I think that's something actually that's not talked about as often as maybe it could be. I know Dr. Lyle talks about some stuff like this, but I still feel like it's much more. We talked yesterday a little bit. So in the U.S., there's Weight Watchers, and I think there's a similar program, and I can't think of the name in the UK, but there's something very similar where you write your food down and you do the stuff, and so a lot of us grew up that way. So we grew up with this very rigid way of thinking, and thinking of things as good and bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what you're saying now is like a way of healing some of that stuff, which is really powerful.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I actually say that I follow a 95% diet. So my diet is 95% plant-based whole food, and the other 5% is vegan junk. You know, chocolate with loads of sugar in it, vegan ice cream, roasted salted peanuts, you know, with lots of salt on stuff, you know, all that sort of stuff. And if by following a diet like that, you take away this, you know, what happens to a lot of people is they eat something that they shouldn't have that breaks the diet. And then what happens? They don't think, oh, I broke the diet. I better, you know, I better be good. I'll follow the diet for the rest of the day. You know, it was just a one-off. Instead of that, they usually, most people go, oh, I've done that, so I might as well carry on eating for the rest of the day, or even the rest of the week, or even, you know, I'll start next month or whatever. Now I've actually had a bar of chocolate. But if you have a 95% diet, I mean, some days, not that often, my lunch consists of a very large bar of chocolate. And it's fine. It's fine. Because that's, you know, that's my 5% probably for 2 or 3 days. But, you know, it allows you to just think, I'm really, really hungry and I really want chocolate. And I don't want one square of dark chocolate with virtually no sugar in it. I want something with a lot of sugar and possibly a lot of additives. And that's what I want right now. But if you're following a 95% diet or a 90% diet, you can allow yourself that.
Well, and it's very ironic because we're just meeting each other. So we're very vocal about following the McDougall program 90 to 95% because it's a no oil diet.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you and I got together and had this conversation, but we just realized this about each other. Part of it for us is because it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah, lifestyle. Yeah.
And since we're doing no oil, that would mean we really can't go out to eat, even someplace that's fairly healthy. So like we've been doing the bundle. We went to my favorite bowl place, which has lovely purple rice, tofu, vegan kimchi, lots of vegetables. But there is some oil. It's not a no oil place. But getting out of the house, having that little break, got my brain back together, right? So I really relate to what you're saying so much. And we've got, Ryan says, I like that she's bringing up things a lot of people do not. Betty Ann says, I'm a stress eater. I eat when I'm upset. And if I get really stressed out, absolutely. Now, Cheryl Diane says, I'm also a stress eater and I ate to swallow my pain and frustration as well. And then kind of on the other side,
can I just offer some help for that?
Absolutely.
Okay. There's 2 things that immediately I think of. One is a technique called emotional stress release, and it involves holding acupressure points, right? And what you do is if you feel up from your eyebrows and go up towards your hairline, as you go upwards, there's some bumps, not right up in your hairline, about halfway. Your forehead comes out. Yeah?
Yeah. I feel it.
That? Okay. So you just hold those points while you think about something that's stressful to you.
It's crazy.
And you don't press them. You don't press them. You don't do any. You just rest your hands there, right? And you think about something that's stressful. And what often happens is when you start, you're feeling like quite agitated by it. And then as you go on holding the points, eventually you either sigh or you get like bored. Oh, do I have to go on thinking about this? And at that point, you know, okay, it's done. Now, you may need to do it several times for different aspects of the same problem. Yeah. But that can work really well. I've had people who are I had one guy who was completely skeptical about it. And he'd had an accident on his mountain bike and was frightened of getting on his mountain bike. And I said to him, look, just try this and think about that accident. And he was like, oh. And I said, just humour me, just do it. And he did it. And he sent me an email a few days later saying, I cannot believe the difference that's made. And it's such a simple technique. So, if you're angry, if you're upset, if you're stressed, you can use that. And the other thing I would recommend is batch flour remedies. Are you familiar with batch flour remedies?
Yes.
I am.
Yeah. Yeah. And they are very, very good for helping with stress. There's 38 different ones. You find the ones that work for you and put them in some water and just sip the water through the day. And that works really well as well. Yeah. I mean, a big step forward is identifying what's going on when you're reaching for food when you're not hungry. So if most people, it's like, for me, it's boredom. That's the big one for me. Actually, not boredom, but needing a change of rhythm or something.
Or like
It's
a
not that I'm actually-
transition. Transitions can be very hard.
Yeah.
Like for some people, like I work from home, but I used to have a transition driving from work to home. And now it's hard to have that transition because I'm already home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wanted to mention when you were talking earlier about, the go outside and just like taking and I was thinking back to before when I worked in the office before the pandemic, and I work from home now, and things have kind of got topsy-turvy for me making that transition to working from home. And I was thinking back and I was like, oh, that makes total sense, because at work when I would need a break, I would literally get up and walk out the front door and go for a walk around some trails we had at work.
Right.
And then
Right.
come back and then be refreshed and ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now I don't do that at home. At home, I just I feel like I just stay on the whole time, and sometimes I'll work 24 hours. I mean, I don't
you
do
need
that
to go out.
transition to stop, right? And I don't get up and go out like I did.
But I think it is a thing. You have to make a choice, and some people have a hard time really looking at what's going on because they're already so stressed and freaked out. And so I think that truly is the key, is taking a look at that. And if you need to go, if you can't do it yourself, maybe it's time to kind of work with a therapist for a little bit and let them help you.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to go back to before we forget, so Justine was saying, but I do think it's important to know yourself and your triggers. So there are some people in the community that feel triggered by certain foods, that feel like maybe they have a food addiction and things like that. And I would assume, I'm going to let you speak too. So of course, like for me, I can't keep tortilla chips in the house. And most of the reason is because I'm not hungry now, and I'm not going to be hungry till I'm a little bit angry, probably. And I try to beat that. But if I'm working and not really paying attention, I'm like, whatever is right there is what I need. I need to put something in my mouth, what is readily available. And so I always try to have something good, like cooked potatoes. I cook sweet potatoes out of the fridge cold so many times, and it's a good choice. And Cheryl likes to have rice in there. But do you have anything that you would like to talk about if people feel like they have some hard triggers or things that they need to avoid in this 95%?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is really difficult. There was some interesting research last year which studied people over 8 weeks, and both groups were given yogurts. One group was given a high-fat, high-sugar yogurt, and the other group, the yogurt wasn't high-fat and wasn't high-sugar, but had the same number of calories. And they did brain scans at the beginning and at the end. And the people who'd had the high-fat, high-sugar yogurts, they had 2 a day, right? Each group had 2 yogurts a day. One was high-fat, one high-sugar, one wasn't. But the group that had the high-fat, high-sugar, when they did the brain scans after 8 weeks, they found that the reward centers in the brain had changed, and that even being shown a picture of something high fat and high sugar, it would trigger the reward center would light up. In other words, people were getting more triggered by high fat, high sugar food. Now, I don't think that happens to everybody, but it happens to a lot of people. And if you're one of them, then you can't eat it, because if you eat it, you'll just want more and more and more. And it's difficult then to avoid it. Now, I don't know whether that is actually an addiction, but I mean, even if it is not a clinical addiction, it is, to all intents and purposes, a behavior that is exactly the same as that, as addictive. And so for those people, it may be essential that they avoid it. Certainly in terms of sugar, there is some evidence now that a whole food plant-based diet supports the bugs in the gut that that actually get you to eat, that stop you craving sugar. So personally, I've found my own desire for sugar has lessened since I've become vegan, and I know that happens to other people as well, but unfortunately, not to everybody.
Absolutely. And I think too, what you're talking about, because I think that so much of this is so personal. Cheryl's helping the dog, so she's not gone. Nothing wrong is happening.
She's not walked out on me. Oh, this woman's talking rubbish. I'm off.
No, what's happening is the dog is like, I'm hearing a lot of talk about food, and I would like some. Thank you very much. It's that your 90 to 95% is probably different than my 90 to 95%. That's different than someone else's. So if we're looking at someone who maybe eats like Chef AJ, a sophist diet, no sugar, oil, salt, avocados, nuts, seeds, alcohol, or flours, right? So you can still have that kind of way, and you can still do 90 to 95% if that's something you want to do. So let me be clear about that. I'm not saying you should do that, but maybe what you do is, actually I can use Chef AJ as a perfect example. Chef AJ was buying salsa that had salt in it because she couldn't find it anywhere else. So she will tell you herself, and she has when I've been on her show, I am not perfect. Everyone thinks Chef AJ is perfect, and Chef AJ is amazing. But I think it's a little stressful for her, for everyone to think she's absolutely perfect. And I showed her how to make a really easy, like ridiculously easy, salt-free salsa. So even in that, where you think, oh, there is no wiggle room, the wiggle room is up to you, what feels good, and what doesn't trigger you to do something. So when we first did the Dr. McDougall program, there's a vegan Indian buffet, which has never happened before, and I love it. I've never had so many choices in all my life every other week. But the first time we went, and we did this with every place we went, afterwards we kind of debrief. Well, do I feel like I need to go out to this kind of food every day because we had it today? Or am I okay with having my oatmeal tomorrow? How does that feel? So we really would talk and try and look at how we felt. And sometimes when we would do a treat, like we go and get a piece of vegan cake, we'd be like, yeah, I don't want to do, this was a real conversation. No, I don't want to do that. We drove an hour away to get a piece of vegan cake. Was it worth doing that a lot? No, we would do it maybe for birthdays, right? But if it was something that really did trigger us and we're like, ooh, we want to bring home more for tomorrow, then we would have to rework what our normal reaction was.
Yeah.
Do you have some examples or some suggestions for things like that as well, as far as getting in touch with your feelings and kind of starting to look at some of that, be aware?
Yeah, I mean, taking some deep breaths before eating can often actually help you see what you're doing. You can keep a food diary around eating and say, what was my mood at that time? And then you can ask yourself, actually, did it make me feel better afterwards? Okay, so I had that cookie, I had that, whatever it happens to be that's your particular favorite. Did it actually make me feel better afterwards? And often it doesn't. And it's a very transitory effect at the time. But as children, a lot of us were given food as a reward. Advertising tends to suggest that, if we eat this particular food, and it's usually not good food, not really healthy, nutritious food. If we eat this particular manufacturer's food, we'll be wildly popular. We'll look amazing. We'll look so beautiful. We will be so slim. We'll be wildly popular. We'll be incredibly successful at work. We'll drive an amazing car. We'll have an amazing body. All this if we eat this food. And we're exposed to that all the time. So I'm not saying it's easy at all. I think we have to, it's something we have to work at. But the benefits of it are huge. When I look at other people my age, I'm 76, and when I meet people, they go, "You're not 76." And I go, "I am." And, they go, "I can't believe it." And I go, "Vegan diet and the gym." This is what happens. So when I look at them and they're struggling and maybe they've got arthritis and so on and so on and so on, and I just think, spending time getting so that your diet works for you and taking exercise, these are really important fundamental things about a long and happy life. The figures now are that most people will spend a fifth of their life in chronic ill health. A fifth of their life. And some people it's more than that. So if you live to 80, it's like 15, 16 years of that 80 that you're going to be not, so 64 to 80, you're going to be in chronic ill health. That's not just an occasional headache or the odd bit of hay fever. It's really, having problems so that you can't do everything you want to. That's what chronic ill health means, that you can't do everything you want to. There's all this stuff you can't do because your health won't allow it. And so it's so worth it to follow a great diet. And one of the things about the bundle is there's so many recipes in there. I was talking to somebody who said they thought there were over 2,000 recipes in it. I don't know if that's right.
It's probably true because even I have 29 recipes in my ebook. I've got 6 full video classes in there with recipes. So I probably have 50 to 70 recipes alone. And some of these books are big. There's over 150 products.
Yeah.
It's and it is really, it can be hard to step into things, but it's harder. Like when Jane started and when I started, there wasn't the same kind of support. And I don't mean to pull, my old person card, but sometimes I will. Because 1983, nobody knew what tofu was. I look around now and it's so crazy because you can go to the grocery store and you can get tofu and you can get tempeh. And it's and it's easy as far as accessible. It's accessible, maybe is a better word.
Yeah.
It still takes that, you have to know why you want to do this. And I think that you're making a great point. Part of the reason you're doing this, and all of us will eventually feel this way, is so those later years can be really delicious and delightful instead of kind of suffering through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's a pretty easy choice in the end. You may have some stops and starts, and that's okay. Where was it? There's a comment. Marie said, I use this concept to stop drinking, and it's been more mindful, and often it's the anticipation before we even eat or drink that gets us excited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And then the aftermath is often, oh, I wish I hadn't eaten that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a whole thing, right? You kind of have to go through that whole thing. And it is, I think this part doesn't get talked about as much because it's a longer process. It's very easy to go, just swap out my dry vegan cheese powder and you can still make your mac and cheese,
Yeah.
which I think is a really good stopgap measure.
But
So-
it doesn't always hit the spot for me. And sometimes I still am like, oh, I wish I just had a box of that, Amy's vegan mac and cheese or whatever. And she's like, but I've made this cheese powder that's doesn't have all that junk in
But
it,
a
and
lot
it's
of
the
it-
same thing. But there's something.
There's a lot of it's in your head, though. We've talked about this in that when I make something with the cheese sauce, she's like, oh my God, this is amazing. Why don't you make this more? And I'm like, because I've been asking you, why don't we make this? And you're like, no, I don't want it. And I think that's a perfect struggle. An idea. It's the idea of opening that box or getting that thing sometimes, I think.
Yeah. Well, like the whole. I grew up with my grandmother would make me Campbell's tomato soup, and she would put milk in it, make it creamy. And then she would put shells, like shell noodles, shell pasta.
All right, yeah.
In it for me. And I grew up eating this. It is the most comforting dish when
And butter. So she doesn't do this now, but she would, like when we first got together, she'd get the Campbell soup, the butter pat, and the pasta. And I was like, this is interesting.
But it was the most comforting thing. So when I really, really felt bad, and when I just really needed something it would lift me up. And you've seen it happen.
Yeah, and what we do, so I make
that's
a really...
true for most people, I think.
Yeah.
We all have, most of us have foods from our childhood that we associate with love, being cared for, being forgiven for doing something naughty or whatever it happens to be. And, it still can have a big pull on us, without a doubt. Yeah.
So we've had to come up with, luckily I have her. And she was able to come up with a tomato powder.
Yeah, it's an instant tomato soup that tastes like Campbell's soup.
Yeah.
That has none of the things in it. And I made one for her because hers has to be exactly a certain way. I made mine, which tastes like lovely with basil and and oats and things. But I make a lot of dry mixes with oats and different things that still can mimic the convenience, yet be a little more healthful. And I
saw that. You've got one of your ebooks is full of that, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Which is great. Yeah.
Well, and I just, even over there, over in the corner, I have a mix to make a chickeny gravy, cheese sauce. I have an oat parmesan, just, so, and the thing is when you're too tired to cook, and what you're talking about a lot too, is when we're experiencing these emotions, or even better yet, when we're processing through these emotions now that we're realizing them, you end up with a less energy because you're using that energy for something else. So one of our favorite, and I'm going to be doing this all next week. Let's just be assured I'm exhausted. Is we make up some compliant mashed potatoes, heat up some frozen veggies, and then I make a gravy. And it's kind of like a deconstructed shepherd's pie per se, right?
Yeah.
And it's so fulfilling, delightful, comforting. So it hits all of those spots, and it has nice flavors, textures. But we can make it in 10 minutes. And I think sometimes you need that.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody needs some quick things they can do quick that are comforting and fulfilling and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Yes. So, Cheryl says like a comforting hug from your grandma.
Yep.
Yes.
And Marilyn says, I love Kathy's tomato soup. It's become my favorite comfort food. And we did in December, my cooking club, we did mason jar soup class so that you could do it we have a presents class every year. And so you could give people. And so I had all these split pea soups in these nice jars. And over the holidays, I would just throw that jar and some water into the slow cooker, and then we could do whatever we wanted, and then dinner was magically there. So,
Oh,
I,
fantastic.
yeah, I think you need to balance it. And I'm the first person to say I love to experiment and make a lot of weird food. It's my profession. But I don't expect you guys to make fancy dinner all the time. But like, it's nice to have maybe a favorite dinner or one that takes more time that you can look forward to, while knowing you have some of these things in your pocket, right?
Yeah.
That you can just make
Yeah.
quickly. What are some of your favorite quick meals that you make for yourself?
I'm not much of a cook, to be honest. And I like eating raw. I'm a huge fan of raw food. I mean, it goes right back to my childhood when my mum was preparing vegetables, and I would sneak my hand in and pick out some cauliflower or a carrot or something. She used to get really cross with me, I'm making this for dinner and you keep on eating it, but I'm so nice like this. So, I tend to make a big raw salad, and then I'll have beans with it, or dressed lentils I like. And I just made some black beluga lentils. You know those? Do you
I
Oh,
get
yeah.
love
beluga
those. Are one of
lentils?
my favorites.
Yeah. Yeah, and the recipe I use, it's just you boil them in water for 2 minutes, in lots of water, and then you strain the water off and put them back in just covered. And then you put herbs and, if you want to, some low salt or no salt vegetable stock in with them, some garlic, bay leaves. And then you cook till the water's evaporated, very slowly till the water's evaporated. And then I usually put, I do use oil, so I'd put some olive oil and lemon juice or cider vinegar with them.
Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds lovely. And for you to say you're not a cook and then you're layering all those flavors. So you're
Yes.
you're very purposefully cooking and flavoring up those lentils. So
Yeah.
hats
Yeah.
off to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And and that's the thing too, is that a lot of people eat a really big salad, and I think getting some of your salad prepped up, and Tammy Kramer talks about that. Even though this year she has like dinner party bundle, she has a salad class that was in last year's bundle. I think it was last year's. And I think that having some things prepped up, even if you're eating raw, can be really helpful. And
Yeah.
then if you're like, I'm not much of a cook, you can take a tin of beans and put a spice blend with them and change everything. And we've done that in some of the things. I take kidney beans, cans of kidney beans, and I turn them into like Cajun red beans for red beans and
Right.
rice.
Yeah. Yeah.
A few spices, saute a couple of veggies, and there you go. And so life can be as simple or as complicated as you have time for. Because I'm real big on, I don't care if you're getting a butternut squash from the organic farm down the street and lovingly breaking it down by hand, or if you go to Trader Joe's and grab some that's already ready in the freezer section.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're in different places of our lives. Some people have wrist issues and can't possibly break that down. Or perhaps you're spending your time really trying to deal with your feelings and really figure out what's going on with you. So there's always the best, but in between is not, if you're not eating a burger at McDonald's, you don't have, the opposite isn't, I grow everything organically in my backyard and break it down. There's these in-betweens for
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And do you have any suggestions for people about how to get started on some of this?
Um, I mean, if people aren't, a lot of people say to me, I wouldn't know what to cook about, going plant-based. And one of the things I say to them is, how many dishes do you currently cook? How many different dishes? And most people, I mean, I'm sure you cook a lot more than this because you love cooking and it's your job and everything. But a lot of people will have maybe 5 or 6 things they cook. They'll cook a chili, they'll cook a curry, they'll cook a lasagna, they'll cook a something else. And I say, okay, so where you start is you take one of those, the chili, the curry, the lasagna, and you make it vegan. You look for, you Google vegan lasagna, or if you bought the bundle, you look through the bundle, or, vegan chili or vegan curry, and you make that. And now you've got one dish that you're going to have most weeks that is vegan, that you like. And then you can do another one, and you do that bit by bit. A lot of people seem to think that if they're going to become vegan, they need 100 different recipes that they cook regularly. But that isn't how most omnivores eat. So why should it be how most vegans eat? So you just need a few recipes. Start with one and then add. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that's true too, because especially if you're not also turning it on or off and you're transitioning slowly, like we talked about in the beginning, that's very easy to do. Because in lasagna, it's like a dish that your family is going to get on board with, if it's vegan or not. And I make my own soy milk. And so I save the pulp or the okara and I turn that into ricotta.
Oh, right. Wow.
Yeah, so we had a lasagna last week, and so there's some things, I do it because I'm cheap, and there's one kind of vegan ricotta, it's like $9 for like almost a cup, and I'm like, this is free with my soy milk, and I just put a little nutritional yeast, salt, and some vegan lactic acid in there, and there you go. Or like you were saying too, like a curry, it's so easy, like if you find that your family needs something, I know there's going to be a comparable product, product, too much talking this week, in the UK, but like soya chunks, we have Butler's soy curls, which are non-GMO, and so I make an oil-free butter chicken with those, and I think that gives you the texture and some of that, and granted, transitioning into some of that isn't necessary for everyone. I'm not saying if you're already vegan, then make sure you're eating your soy curls. It's not a requirement. Yeah. But I think be easy on yourself on the way over,
Absolutely. I'd absolutely agree, yeah. Yeah.
And we do have a question about the bundle, so I'm going to talk about this for a minute if you don't mind. And she was talking to Cheryl, do you save the bundle to watch it? How long do you watch it? Do you have to download 550 megabytes? So you have a year to download everything. And then things like mine that are courses, you'll download a PDF that has a link. You click that link and then you sign up. So the sooner you kind of go through some of that, but you are going to download the PDFs. Do you?
You do need to you need to download everything because, and I would suggest just go ahead and do it. Now.
And you have to download them one at a time. We actually have a video that is on the YouTube, and I'll come sneak it in here in just a second, showing you how to save these to Google Drive or OneDrive so you're not taking up space on your hard drive. And then you can pull it. So if you've got it on Google Drive and you've got Google Drive installed on your phone, your iPad, you can download whatever book you want at any given time. Once you've downloaded it to something like that, you can download it as many times as you want. From Sendow, where you buy the bundle, you get to download each thing 10 times, which you shouldn't need. But that's like in case you change computers or something like that. I'll let you continue talking. I'll put the link.
It's really, it's really important that you realize that with the bundle, everything's going to be, every contributor you has something different. You're going to have to click and download that. And you want to make sure that you do all that before a year is up. And also, like Kathy was saying, a lot of contributors have a link to someplace else that you need to go and sign up for something. So I would suggest going through and just downloading everything over the next couple days so that you have it and it's yours forever. And then you can take your time going through and watching things and reading things and everything like that. And again, like some of the things that we've done, and this is always an option for people, this is the contributor cookbook. And what we did was we printed it out on our printer at home, and then we took it to the office supply store. We went to Staples here in the States, and we actually had them spiral bound it. So they just basically put a little plastic cover on it, a little plastic cover on the back, and then spiral bound it so that now.
And it was like $5.
$5.
If you print out the pages at home, at least where we are at Staples, if I sent the whole file over, it's going to cost $25.
Yeah. But if you print
If
it
you
at
print
home,
it yourself, it's $5.
yeah. So, and then we can just, have it on the counter and open it up flat.
And we don't print out every one of those because that
No.
would be $5 each. That'd be
Right.
$500.
There's certain ones that we knew we wanted, and we went ahead and did that. Like we knew we wanted ours.
Yeah, so that we could show, and it's kind of nice. And so some people are a little bit reluctant to use ebooks, though. Let me tell you, I'm all in on the ebooks because on my iPad, I can make the font any size I want. If I want to make it ginormous, I can make it ginormous. Also, it means I can pull it down on my phone if I'm at the grocery, remembering that, oh, there's this recipe I wanted to make, but I didn't check the ingredients, and you can check that. But if you're really not feeling reading the ebooks yet, that's a really good way to work around that.
Yeah, and somebody else mentioned that they did order a flash drive for it, and I think that's another great idea.
And so like a little thumb drive, because then you can stick it in your computer and download everything there.
Just download directly to it.
That's what Apple does every year, so she has a flash drive for each bundle. And so that way you don't lose it.
Right.
And how, do you have a recommended way, Jane, that you download things like this?
I mean, I really recommend, if you can, using either Google Drive or OneDrive, because then it's not taking up space. I think it doesn't take up as much space as people think it's going to, because like Cheryl said, there aren't videos, it's videos which take up a lot of space on a laptop or a computer or a tablet or whatever, but there aren't you won't be downloading videos. What you will be downloading is PDFs with a link to a video. So you click on the link and then you're on the net and you're viewing the video there. So it's all PDFs. And somebody told me once that PDF stands for pretty damn fast.
I love that.
That's awesome.
So, which to indicate that it doesn't take ages to download PDFs, and the reason it doesn't take up loads of time is because they don't take up a lot of space. I
think the whole thing is like 540
megabytes,
560 something like that megabytes.
And depending on when you kind of came into technology, that may seem like a lot. However, like what did we decide? Google Drive gives you
15 gigabytes free.
And this is half of 1 gigabyte.
Right. And OneDrive gives you 5 gigabytes free.
So you have enough for this bundle and bundles in the future.
Yes.
By far. In years past, you were able to click one button and download everything. That is not there this year. Right. So I think Sendal changed something. So it's a good and a bad thing. So there's probably a couple of things you're just not interested in, and you just don't have to download them and delete them. So I think that that's a positive thing. And one thing I tell people, because it's a lot of material, if you're feeling overwhelmed, pick a topic. Like maybe you want to add, summer is coming, maybe you want to add more raw foods, maybe get a couple of raw food cookbooks, or maybe you're really wanting to dive into how you're making choices. So Jane's Willpower book, you want to include that. I'm really interested in Drina Burton's fascia class. And, so get a couple of things. Don't overwhelm yourself. Mm-hmm. And you can still download everything, but maybe put these things in what I'm working now. And the you right now is interested in things that you in November may not, you might be like, oh, well now I want to see where there's soups and stews, and I want to take that yoga class now that I've worked on my fascia. So the thing about the bundles, there's so much material. It's not just for right now, it's for this year and next year, and you can keep building on it. Mm-hmm. Do you have some favorite stuff from the bundle?
I haven't got round to cooking anything yet, which won't surprise you. I do love looking at recipes, even if I don't cook them. But there's a couple of books that have dips couple of ebooks with dips. So I'm going to, I often just put oil and vinegar on my salad, but I've decided I'm going to explore some of these dips, particularly because they're oil free. So I'm really interested in trying those. I'm going to try some of your mixes because that seems to me like a great idea. And I'm not saying that just because you're the host. I genuinely mean that because some of those look good. Yeah.
Well, it's hard not to be curious to see food from the 70s actually be healthy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think
Yes. Yes.
there's a natural curiosity for that. And Betty Ann was saying, sorry if this was spoke of. Google Drive, is it free? Yes, so with all these drives, Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, there's a certain amount for free. And if you go over that, which you guys won't, you can pay. So like from my traditionally published cookbooks that I shot the photos for, those photos are huge, like a gig sometimes each. Yeah. So for something like that, or a specialty thing, or for work purposes, oftentimes people will have more. Or if you just take a lot of vacation photos, you might choose to do that. Though if you're an Amazon Prime member, at least you used to be able to upload unlimited photos. So I actually even back up my book photos there. So that's a tip for you, but you can't do videos for free. But yeah, you get a lot of space for free, and that's why we're telling you guys about it, because I think that people who don't know may think that you have to pay money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Apple wants to know, are you going to be on Rachel Detroit's channel? Are you doing an interview with Rachel as well?
Me. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Today?
Yes.
You're a busy bee today.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah.
Awesome.
I don't think I mean, I know a lot of people watch you regularly, but if they want the link, where do they find the link for the bundle? I don't think you've said that.
Okay, great. I've been putting it in the chat while we're live. So if you're watching the recording, which many people will, if you go look down below, there's a start of something and then ... You're going to click those dots and you're going to get all this information. You'll find Jane's information in there and how to contact and follow her, which I want you to do because I think she's fantastic and fascinating. And so I already signed up on your email list so that I can get all your information. I like what you have to say, and I love the way that you're saying it too, because it's such an accessible way to do it. But you guys, you only have a limited amount. I mean, I can't do the math because I'm East Coast and this is Pacific Coast, so like 15 hours maybe to get the bundle. So it's not that long a time. So if you're kind of hemming and hawing and you're not sure, I would say go ahead and get it if there's at least 2 things that you're interested in from the bundle. Like I said, I have over $200 worth of classes. My classes are usually $35 each if bought separately. I've got 6 classes and an ebook, Thriving on Starch. And this book has 29 recipes that are all McDougall compliant. And I want to find out more things like where I touch to not feel so stressed. So I'm going to be reading your book. That's going to be on the top of my de-stress list from Bundle Stress next week.
Definitely.
And is there anything you'd like to send us off with, a thought or...
Words of wisdom?
Something I haven't mentioned is that I also have a book called 190 Weight Loss Hacks, which people might be interested in, which gives you, again, it's sort of strategies, mindsets, backed by research about what works. And I think, that I hope people would find that interesting. I've also written a book about menopause weight loss. So I just want to get those 2 in quickly. But my big tip, I guess, is the variety effect, which is, put very simply and quickly, is have more variety of things that are good for you, have less variety of things that are unhealthy. So if you have six different types of donuts, you're going to want to try more than one. You're going to want to eat more than one. If you have only one, even though if you have 6 donuts but they're all the same, then you're much less likely to eat. You may just eat the one. So it's been proved again by science, by research. So things that you want to eat that's good for you, like fruit, veggies, nuts, seeds, so on, so on, so on, have a lot of variety of them, and then you're likely to eat more. Things that you don't want to eat or you don't want your kids to eat, have less variety.
Oh, that's a great
Yeah,
tip.
that is a great tip.
And I've never heard that before.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna have a visitor.
Well, we'll see if
Oh,
he's getting
a
on camera.
cat.
Yeah, you can see him. Everybody can't see him yet, but there he comes. Oh, he's like, what?
Hi, buddy.
Fergus is like, why is no one paying attention to me?
Yes. What is this? Next year, when he hears the word, when your animals hear the word bundle, they're going to go, oh no, here we go again.
Careful, that's hot,
Oh,
buddy.
they are not thrilled. But although Max, our dog, is getting all kinds of special, let's be quiet treats.
He's kind of milking it a little bit now.
He's totally milking it now. And then Fergus every once in a while comes up and he's like, well, you're staring at that screen. I guess you're going to stare at me now. But thank you so much. It's just been such a pleasure talking to you and getting to know some of your concepts. And I was not expecting to be so delighted this early in the morning in my brain.
I've really enjoyed it. It's been really, really nice speaking to you both.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And you'll have to come back another time, if you will. I'll let you think
I'd
about
love
that.
Awesome.
I'd love to.
And everybody, we're going to have our oatmeal, and then we're going to be back at noon. And then I've got 3 more lives today. How many times are you live today, Jane?
2 more. 2 more.
I'm jealous. No. I'm gonna love doing all of them, but I'm kind of ready for tomorrow and just to lay in bed and read a book about my vegan alchemist. Little mind candy.
You are a great host, I have to say.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, you really
Truly.
have been an amazing guest, and you have just really given us a lot to think about that I feel like we haven't talked about this week. And so I find that super exciting.
And kind of a little validation as well.
Well, yeah. It doesn't hurt that you said 90 to 95% either.
Yeah. That's us.
Well, you guys all have a really wonderful day. Do something really kind for yourself. If you've got an extra teaspoon, do something kind for someone else. If you just can't stomach people today, pet an animal. Right? Do something nice for an animal. And I'll see you guys back here in just a little while. And just have the very, very best Sunday. All right?
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.